A jealous ex-husband commits a brutal crime.
McGuffey shot his ex-wife in broad daylight.
Police give chase, but this fugitive disappears into thin air.
He's not here.
Michael E. McGuffey was still armed. He was on the run.
The FBI tracks him to Mexico.
Listen, I need more money.
We knew his mother and his stepfather were helping him out.
To capture this murderer, investigators will need more than just luck. Criminals sometimes try to escape from justice. This is the story of how one man almost got away with it. September 27th, 1993. A fall afternoon in the quaint town of Mount Vernon, Washington, 60 miles north of Seattle. The town promises a quieter suburban life for its residents, but that will soon change. Michael McGuffey is a 27-year-old electrician. He plans to meet with his ex-wife, Michelle, before she begins her shift as a waitress at Austin's restaurant. He has told her that they need to finalize their taxes.
As per usual, I was hungover, bought a bottle of rum. So when I get over there, Michelle's not there. She's late. So that puts me in a worse mood.
1 month earlier, their 8-year marriage came to an end. Michelle was granted custody of their 4-year-old daughter.
Michelle, you're late.
Michelle has recently started seeing a new man. McGuffey fears her new boyfriend is a sexual predator and is worried about his daughter. He warns Michelle to stop seeing this man.
Don't you ever...
Michelle has no intention of ending the relationship.
I said, if you do it, I'll kill both of you, because I'm not letting anything happen to my little girl. And, I guess she didn't take it to heart. And then the argument keeps getting hotter and hotter.
Michelle tells McGuffey that she won't stop seeing this new man.
And I just exploded. We're wrong.
You're not going anywhere. You hear me? Yeah, see that? Huh? You're wrong. You're wrong.
I remember the sound, the explosion, the blood, and basically my mind goes blank after that.
Witnesses who notice the commotion and hear the gunshots call 911.
And then saw him running away from the vehicle and left her in the car and one leg hanging out the door like, she had tried to escape. She had tried to get away.
Police arrive on the scene within minutes. Mark Shipman was a detective with the Mount Vernon Police back in 1993.
I've noted a white female. She was slumped over to the right side of the vehicle and was obviously deceased. She had some severe head trauma.
Shipman and his team of investigators collect evidence and survey the crime scene.
We began our investigations, which of course always starts out with photographing the scene before anything is moved or contaminated in any way. We noted shell casings in the car as well as on the outside of the car.
A crime of this caliber is almost unheard of in the small town of Mount Vernon. Many believe there were early signs that something terrible might happen between Michael and Michelle.
There had been a history of domestic violence between he and Shelley, which led to the eventual divorce between the two of them.
It was clear that it was a very rocky marriage. There were several times where she had tried to leave him and didn't for whatever reason. It seems like quite often because she was afraid that something would happen to her if she left.
Mount Vernon police start an intensive manhunt to find McGuffey.
We continued to interview witnesses, and when we were satisfied that Michael McGuffey was at least a person of interest at that time, or somebody who we had to locate or needed to locate. We put out what we call an ATL, or an attempt to locate, out for him, as well as his vehicle.
There are only 4 detectives in the Mount Vernon Police Department. The team works overtime to locate McGuffey. What they don't realize is that he is right under their noses.
I drove right by the crime scene again with the red car they were looking for. Truthfully, I really thought life was pretty much over at that point.
McGuffey isn't sure where to go, so he drives east. After nearly 3 hours, he reaches Mount Baker National Forest.
And I thought maybe up in the mountains I could find peace. I really wasn't trying to run from the law or anything.
McGuffey sleeps in his car for 2 nights. He doesn't know what to do or where to go. Then, on September 29th, just 2 days after committing the murder, McGuffey drives to the town of Everett.
I drove my car to a mall, so it'd be in with a lot of other cars, so it couldn't be traced, and so the officers couldn't readily find me. Then I took a cab and went to a motel so I could spend the night.
The motel is just 30 miles south of the crime scene.
I still haven't even left the state of Washington. I still don't even plan on leaving or running away or anything else.
Police are still looking.
McGuffey's plans soon change when he hears a local news report.
Michelle in Mount Vernon.
I finally turned on the radio. I was hoping that I would get some clip of news, and it did talk about it.
McGuffey has been at large for several days and is considered armed and dangerous.
That's when I knew they were looking for me.
Any information?
Before McGuffey decides his next move, he makes a phone call to the one person he can trust, his mother, Anita.
Hello?
Mama?
I really just had given up. I knew I was going to prison, and just had given up until I called my mom, and that's my strength.
Anita tells him that the police are considering McGuffey armed and dangerous. And according to McGuffey, she has some even more disturbing news.
The officers up there told her that they were going to shoot me on sight and not give me a chance to give up.
Anita fears for her son's safety. She tells him that he only has one choice.
You gotta run, baby. You gotta run.
And so she said, they're not going to give you a chance. Run, baby, run.
Okay.
And that was the start of everything right there.
4 days after the murder, McGuffey starts his getaway. His first move puts police hot on his trail. A local taxi driver has seen a picture of the fugitive on TV and recognizes him as a recent fare. McGuffey boards a bus in Seattle. At the same time, police receive the tip from the taxi driver.
And you're sure this is the guy?
Police race to the bus station, but they're too late. McGuffey's nowhere to be found. Now, fearing that their fugitive is out of state, local officials call in the FBI. Special Agent William Malott is dedicated to fugitive recovery. Mount Vernon Police request his assistance on this case.
Fugitive cases in the Bureau come to us as unlawful flight to avoid prosecution, UFAPs. Typically, the department will come to the FBI and say, we have a fugitive, he's committed this heinous crime, and we have reason to believe he has fled the state to avoid this prosecution. With that information, we can take it to a judge and get the UFAP warrant, and then that allows us to enter the case and to try and locate the fugitive.
Agents track all outbound buses from Seattle, but McGuffey has a plan to outfox authorities.
I went to the bus station in Seattle and bought a ticket down to Los Angeles, California. Stopped in Portland, bought another ticket.
McGuffey's strategy is to buy a ticket to a destination, ride halfway there, then get off the bus and buy a new ticket to a new destination. Then start the process over again.
If they were trying to track my movements, then I could at least throw them for a little bit of loop.
His strategy works. His trail goes ice cold.
think part of his enjoyment was this game of how can I avoid being captured by the police? How can I outsmart the police? I think that was part of the thrill for him.
Investigators become desperate for any leads.
Well, on his flyer, we printed a bunch of his likes and dislikes. He liked to ride motorcycles. We knew he liked to lift weights. He was trained as an electrician, so we were consistently getting leads from electricians that maybe he was working in different parts of the country.
One of the few hopes detectives hold on to is that McGuffey will contact a family member. They track down his mother in Texas and ask for her help.
We attempted to explain to them the importance of locating him for not only his safety but ours. We assumed that Michael E. McGuffey was still armed. He was on the run. He knew police were pursuing him, and we didn't want to see law enforcement or anyone else be hurt as a result of his fleeing. Michael's mother at one point during our first visit with her told us that she believed that he would probably go out and commit suicide.
I don't know what you're bothering me for. If he did this, he has killed himself by now. Leave me alone.
McGuffey's mother refuses to cooperate, but Detective Shipman gets the sense that she's covering for her son.
I think she really felt like her son was a victim in all this, and obviously she was very protective of him. I think she felt like Shelley was really the instigator of everything that had gone wrong in this relationship.
You are nothing right now, okay? You're not doing anything with your life.
I think she was willing to do whatever she could to protect her son.
Meanwhile, McGuffey continues to work his bus strategy. He's heading for his home state of Texas, where he hopes to get help from his family. After a week of bus travel, McGuffey is running out of money and options. He's desperate for his mother's help, but he fears police are tapping her phone lines. He decides a letter is safer. He tells her he'll be in Dallas in a few days, and he sets up a meeting spot.
I'm about to go to mail that letter to my mom and my stepfather because basically I'm just a little boy that wants to see his mom.
What he doesn't know is police are monitoring her mail, too.
We did mail covers for his parents, looking at their mail to see whether or not they were receiving any correspondence from him.
If police intercept McGuffey's letter, they'll know exactly where and when to pick him up. On September 27th, 1993, Michael McGuffey shoots and kills his ex-wife. Now, he's on the run. He sends a letter to his mother in Brownwood, Texas, asking for help, but police are monitoring her mail. But because he used a courier instead of the U.S. mail system, the letter reaches his mother undetected. McGuffey asks his family to meet him at a designated spot and tells them to bring him some money. Detective Mark Shipman is the lead detective in Mount Vernon, Washington.
The McGuffeys owned and operated a nursing home and some apartments and had some other properties in the Brownwood area. They were influential, and they did have a financial means to help Michael E. McGuffey flee further.
A few days later, McGuffey goes to the meeting place.
I was hesitant. I watched for their car, but I really expected, I expected the police to intercept the letter. And I expected to be caught at that point. But when they showed up, to be truthful, I was just happy to see my mom. When I saw my mom, it's just tears welled up in our eyes, and we hugged each other. She was holding her baby that she didn't know if she was going to see again, and she says, "Mike, I can't believe this happened."
His mother gives McGuffey $10,000 in cash.
I got something for you. It's better than the money.
But his brother gives him something far more valuable. A fake birth certificate.
Thank you.
He says, "Mike, if you want to, you can take this little paper ID that I have for a driver's license in Oklahoma and just take that and this birth certificate and see if they'll give you a picture ID.
McGuffey makes a quick trip by bus to Oklahoma and comes away with a state-issued ID under the name of Mark Allen Price.
With a paper ID and a birth certificate, they'll hook it just like that in Oklahoma. Once I get my driver's license from Oklahoma, I buy a plane ticket to Houston, and from Houston, I buy one straight to Mexico City, because I figure once I'm on those planes, it'll be hard for them to catch up with me. I just want to get to Mexico, and once I get to Mexico, I figure I can lose them with their bus system in Mexico.
I think one of the frustrating parts of this manhunt is that Mike McGuffey was such an average-looking Joe. I mean, he was about, average size, no real distinguishing features, other than at one point he was a bodybuilder. So I think that made it really tough to put out a description of who you're looking for when he could look like the average guy walking down the street.
It's been 3 weeks since McGuffey started to run. He's made it to Mexico. Federal investigators are following leads, but they are all dead ends.
We thought he was on some fishing boats in Alaska, and we sent leads up there, and they interviewed various boat captains and fishermen, and weren't able to determine that he had been up there or was working there.
I really didn't like Mexico City because, I don't know, it was too big and it was too crowded for me. And so I decided to go to Acapulco. This sounds terrible after committing a murder, but I did. I said, I'm going to go to Acapulco. It sounds like a place that I would enjoy being. See if maybe a little beach and sunlight might help clear my mind. I might as well try to have a little bit of fun before I get caught. And I know that sounds greedy and selfish, but I will give it a shot.
Soon after arriving in Acapulco, McGuffey finds a motel and checks in. For the first time, he feels like he might have gotten away with murder. Then, he hears an unexpected knock at the door. What he sees brings panic to his mind. 2 Mexican police officers are knocking at his door.
I look out the peephole, and it's 2 cops, and I said, son of a gun, I knew I shouldn't have came here to Acapulco. It's the first place they're going to look. They're going to catch me in this tourist place. Oh, I said, okay, calm down, Mike, you can handle this. So I pile all the furniture up against the door. Go over the window, look down. Oh my God! It's like 4 or 5 stories up, and there's this little bitty drain pole.
McGuffey considers his options: climb down 5 stories on a thin drain pool, or face the police. McGuffey decides to surrender.
Open the door, and the cops are going, sir, you need to give us the pants back you stole. I'm like, what? And I'm saying, no. And so they're trying to tell me in broken English that basically the guy on the floor above me had hung his pants out to dry out the window. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to prison because somebody thinks I stole a damn pair of pants.
McGuffey struggles to communicate with the Mexican police. He knows they've got the wrong man. But McGuffey needs to make sure that the police don't find anything that makes them take a closer look at him.
And I really don't want them to find that 10 grand I have in the room, too, because it looks suspicious. Why do you have a tourist here with $10,000 cash? They're going to think I'm down there trying to buy drugs or whatever.
McGuffey quickly realizes resistance is not helping. He decides a different tact is the best way out of the situation.
To this day, I'm still not sure if those pants ever existed or not, or these guys are just looking for a bribe.
Law enforcement in Mexico doesn't have the best of reputations, and for somebody who's got the money, it might be easy to pay your way out of a situation, even if you were to get caught.
It's a close call for McGuffey, something he'll have to be prepared for as a fugitive in Mexico.
I really need to know if you had any contact with your son.
Meanwhile, Detective Shipman has Texas authorities re-question McGuffey's mother. He has reason to believe that she's helping her son financially and knows more than she's telling.
Anita had removed over $23,000 from her bank account, and that she had obtained over $20,000 of those dollars in $20 bills. We believe that some of that money was used to further Michael Lee McGuffey's running.
Well, we knew they had money and they were sympathetic to Michael. And we were able to do various records checks. In addition, the local police department down there was very aware of Michael's status as a fugitive. And so they would periodically go by, and we would check on certain holidays and on birthdays and things of that nature. And routinely we would re-interview family members to see if they had any sort of contact with Michael.
Aside from the suspicious withdrawal of money, the FBI cannot find any evidence that McGuffey and his family are in communication. Here, too, McGuffey has devised a plan that keeps agents from picking up his scent.
I never lost contact with my family. What we did is I would call payphones, a payphone in the United States, and we had 3 different payphones. That I would call the first one. If she didn't answer there, then I would go call the second one. Either my brother or my mom would show up at the payphone.
Yeah, listen, can you send a little bit more money?
I'd talk to them. We'd talk every so often. If I needed some financial help, they would send me, they'd wire the money through Western Union to me.
Where are you at right now?
They did send me a lot of money, and they helped me a lot.
Hey,
In addition to sending money, McGuffey's brother passes along some unnerving news.
Detective Shipman, keeps breathing down our necks, but...
Detective Shipman has been relentlessly questioning McGuffey's mother. When McGuffey hears this, it makes him more determined to avoid capture.
That's what inspired me to not get caught. It really did. Anytime that I even thought about turning myself in, I wouldn't do it just because I wanted to get the better of that person.
Nearly 2 years pass, and McGuffey has settled quietly into Mexican life. In the city of Guadalajara, he supports himself with money from his mother and odd jobs he finds around town.
When I first went to Mexico, I bought a little book, Spanish for tourists, and I learned how to speak 5 sentences. And it started out with 5 sentences, and from that, people would teach me how to speak, just teach me 1 word or 2 words a day, until about 6 months later, I could speak Spanish. I stayed away from anybody that could speak English or anybody that's American, because I fear that's the best way to get caught.
McGuffey sticks to his plan and sticks to himself for 2 years. That's all about to change. One day, he finds himself at a bar watching football, and he lets down his guard. He notices another American at the bar.
We start talking back and forth, and dude seems like a pretty good guy. He goes, well, I'm a trade consultant here at the consulate here in Guadalajara.
The 2 Americans share round after round and talk about life back in the U.S. Then, according to McGuffey, his new acquaintance lets him in on a secret that catches him completely off guard.
Not really a trade. So he says, I'm not really a trade consultant. I'm an FBI agent here in Guadalajara.
McGuffey's instinct is to run, but he knows if he does, the agent will become suspicious.
Well, if I run out of there, I know this guy's going to follow me, and he's going to figure out what the hell, or he's at least going to look the wanted sheets and find out.
Instead, McGuffey tries to play it cool. When the agent asks about his life in Mexico, McGuffey gives very general answers.
He said, hey, what are you doing down here? And I said, I'm an electrician. I help people out with little security systems and stuff like that.
McGuffey hopes to change the subject, but his new friend continues to pry, asking question after question.
I'm all paranoid. I think, man, is he really just kind of feeling me out? Is he just playing me is what I'm thinking, so he could ID me?
McGuffey figures the best way to avoid arrest is to make his new friend forget everything about him.
Have another beer. I want to get this guy's mind as fuzzy as he can. Hopefully he can't remember me at all.
According to McGuffey, after hours of drinking, The FBI agent is heavily intoxicated. They make plans to meet again. It's a date McGuffey is determined not to make. Instead, McGuffey packs and immediately leaves Guadalajara. It's his only chance to stay one step ahead of authorities, but he may be too late. The FBI receives an anonymous tip. It identifies a Washington State man fitting the description of Michael McGuffey. Agents in Mexico locate their suspect. Could this be the end of Michael McGuffey's run? In 1993, murder suspect Michael McGuffey flees to Mexico. After 2 years on the lam, the FBI gets a tip to his whereabouts. They think they've got him cornered in Puerto Vallarta. According to McGuffey, Detective Shipman calls McGuffey's family to let them know they're about to catch their fugitive.
My ex-in-laws and the officers and everybody was calling my mom. They were taunting her that they finally won and beat her, and you guys lost. And that really actually turned this into a competition, too, when they did that.
Holding out hope, McGuffey's mother returns to the assigned payphone and waits for her son's call.
They called my mom. My mom's sad. She's crying. She goes, "How are you calling me on this phone? You calling me from the jail cell?"
It's fine. It's good.
Like I always do, Mom. She says, you're not in Washington. I said, no.
The FBI's suspect in Puerto Vallarta turns out to be a case of mistaken identity.
Is there a problem?
We did send the lead down to Puerto Vallarta to have a fugitive. We thought it was Michael McGuffey. When they interviewed the subject, it turns out he was a fugitive from Washington State, but for a different crime. They weren't able to arrest him at that moment, but it scared him so much that he fled back to the state of Washington and turned himself in.
While authorities focused on the false lead, McGuffey slips away. He settles in the small town of Santa Anita in order to lay low.
And there's no gringos there, nobody there, very few people there that can even speak any English.
McGuffey soon finds a local bar where he can hang out.
And so after a while, I got to know the bartender and the people that own the bar and got to be really good friends with all of them.
McGuffey feels U.S. authorities will not find him hidden deep within Mexican society. But here, there's a different threat: kidnapping and ransom from local drug cartels.
Down there, they have, one guy was called, the ear lopper, and they cut pieces of you off and send them to your family. Because if they send a little finger or ear or whatever to your family, it speeds up the money coming.
McGuffey is careful to watch his back.
So I go back to the bathroom and notice there's these two guys back there, and one's had another one, I don't know, a brick of Coke about yay big. Just walked in, bad timing.
McGuffey minds his own business, trying to keep a low profile.
So I go back there, take a leak, don't even think about it, walk back up to the bar, sit down and start drinking my beer.
McGuffey's friend Lorenzo gives him some bad news.
And then Lorenzo comes over and he goes, "Oh, Mike, you're in trouble. That dude back there thinks you're DEA. He's all paranoid. You saw him give that dude that Coke. He may kill you, man. And he's got his two goons there just, to make sure I don't leave the bar. You're just going to have to talk to him and see if you guys can work something out."
McGuffey has to find a way to convince the drug dealer that he's not a DEA agent. Otherwise, the dealer will kill him in order to keep him quiet.
If he would have done it, nobody in that bar would have ever said anything to cops. It was that kind of bar. It would have been, and I knew that, they knew that.
McGuffey tries to assure the dealer that he's not with the DEA. To prove it, the dealer insists McGuffey use the drugs.
I never done Coke before, so he sliced off big chunks of Coke, and I said, might as well now, I'm dead anyway, and if I don't do this Coke, he's really going to think I'm DEA.
The two men binge on drugs and alcohol all night.
So we sat there, we did Coke until the bar closed.
Finally, the dealer is convinced of McGuffey's story and lets him go. It's another close call, one that makes McGuffey rethink how he lives his life on the run. It's now been over 2 years since the murder of Michelle McGuffey. For Detective Shipman, the trail for her killer has nearly gone cold.
I got something for you. It's better than the money.
But now, investigators learn something about Michael's brother, Shane McGuffey, that could crack the case wide open.
Shane had obtained a Texas state driver's license in the name of Mark Allen Price with his picture on it. It was our belief at that time that Shane had acquired an alias and that he was attempting to legitimatize that alias for his brother Michael.
Now, investigators have a name to look for. They begin to search for pay stubs and wire transfers to the name Mark Allen Price. What's more, the FBI is increasing public awareness on the case in hopes that someone will crack and turn in McGuffey.
If we were able to keep the pressure up and keep him publicized, that eventually someone would come forward with the information that would lead to his arrest, whether because he made someone angry or people got tired of seeing his face on the television. And we also knew he had several aliases, and so we were consistently watching for those names to pop up in different parts of the country.
According to McGuffey, his family now feels it's too risky for him to receive money under his alias.
Hi, honey.
What's wrong?
Well, I can't send you money anymore, Mike.
What?
It's just not safe. I can't
If the
do
cash
it.
dries up,
I don't...
McGuffey cannot survive on the run. It will force him to make a desperate move.
All right, I gotta go. All right.
Michael McGuffey has been on the lam in Mexico for 3 years. His lifeline has been the money his mother Anita wires to his alias. Now, authorities have discovered the name he's using, and the money is about to dry up. McGuffey has had several close calls while on the run. He figures his best bet is to stay away from the bar scene. When he meets Carla Osona, his life takes an unexpected turn.
One day he came into the video store where I was working. I helped him because he didn't have the correct Mexican ID to rent a movie. Then later, he came to my work and asked me out to lunch.
Carla had the prettiest smile, and my insides were so sad that her smile lit up my heart. I went from being paranoid all the time to I got soft.
McGuffey and Carla begin to date. When questions about his life in the U.S. arise, McGuffey slyly avoids the subject.
Where are my
Carla
parents?
doesn't know the truth.
They're in jail.
I had no idea about his past, about his ex-wife and how she died. It came as such a surprise.
Really? What about? What's up?
McGuffey keeps the truth from Carla. Life seems comfortable. But her parents are concerned about McGuffey's intentions.
They're like, this guy's just an American, he's using you. Look, you've been together all this time and he hasn't married you. And so Carla comes crying to me and says, basically, is this true that, sure is using me and you don't love me? I said, Carla, I love you with all my heart. She says, how come we don't get married?
There's something I have to tell you.
McGuffey feels that he needs to come clean. He tells Carla the truth about his past.
And I said, Carla, I'm one for murder. I'm one for murdering my first wife.
It really wasn't my fault.
But he told me it wasn't his fault, and that it was an accident, and I believed him. In fact, I still do.
I said, I'd love to marry you, but I can't because I don't want to put you in that risk. I love you too much for you to have that hanging over your head for the rest of your life, and especially after they do catch me. And she said she still wanted to marry me.
On April 30th, 1997, McGuffey marries Carla in a Catholic service. Living near Carla's family, McGuffey is able to completely disappear from the radar. In addition, McGuffey contacts his mother and tells her he can start to receive money again.
Hello?
Mom?
Hi, honey.
Hey, listen, I got a new plan.
If she sends it to his wife, Carla, the FBI won't know to trace it.
Carla.
She started sending the money to Carla's name, and Carla would go pick up the money.
This is a great idea, sweetheart. I knew something would work out.
They probably, over about 9 years, probably sent me anywhere from like $80,000 to $100,000.
McGuffey is finally able to establish a new life.
Sure, honey.
He feels confident that now he'll never get caught.
I love you too, Mikey.
Love you.
Several years pass without incident. On June 8, 2001, McGuffey and Carla give birth to a son.
He was a great father. He would sing him songs. He would wake up in the middle of the night to feed the baby. He used to take the baby to the park.
Back in the U.S., Detective Shipman has not forgotten the McGuffey case after 8 years. After countless dead ends and a cold trail, Shipman gets advice that puts the case back on track.
I spoke with an FBI agent in Darien, Connecticut, who had just completed a parallel case to the McGuffey case. And what he told me is, he said, Mark, quit looking for him. Follow the money and you'll find him.
Shipman goes back to the case and looks for new clues in McGuffey's family.
During our investigation, we had learned that Michael Lee McGuffey had a life insurance for $100,000. I contacted the life insurance company and found out that even after the homicide, the premiums were remaining current.
Detective Shipman learns that McGuffey's mother is continuing to make payments on his life insurance. He concludes that number 1, her son must still be alive. And number 2, she knows where he's living. Finally, officials receive the tip that breaks the case.
Law enforcement is a function of the community, and so some of the biggest cases are solved when someone picks up the telephone and calls in a tip.
Yeah, I got some info for you on McGuffey. Guys, get over there.
The tipster provides them with specific details of the most recent transfer from Anita in Brownwood, Texas, to her son in Mexico.
He was receiving money in Mexico through Western Union. And I was able to determine which store he was receiving money and how often. From that, we were able to contact our assistant legal attaché in Mexico City.
In addition, instead of Carla picking up the money, as she's done for the last few years, this wire will be picked up by McGuffey.
Carla's at home taking care of our son. It's the reason why I was picking up the money myself, is because I had a newborn son. And the doctors said that they wanted us to keep him in the house for the first 6 months of his life.
On November 16, 2001, McGuffey goes to pick up a wire transfer. He's taking a risk by breaking a rule that has kept him safe for years.
I just got overconfident.
McGuffey is picking up the money. Things do not go smoothly.
This person that does all the computer work and everything and types everything in, it seems to be having problems, and the computer seems to be having problems. I'm like, She goes, oh, don't worry about it. Just give me a few minutes and I'll have it worked out and I'll be able to get the money to you.
Outside, Mexican officials set their trap.
I feel about 4 or 5 guys grab me and drag me to the floor from behind. Don't even have a clue who it is at the time. All these guys are in plain clothes. I can see they've got pistols. They're dragging me out of this place. And then as they drag me out, there's a bunch of other guys out there with like AK-47s and stuff. They get me out the curb and they're trying to put the handcuffs on me. And I'm like, that's not happening. I get my feet on the curb and I see this bus is coming. And so I start shoving us all out front.
As the bus bears down on the men, McGuffey's only hope is that they will let go.
If I get us in front of these buses, these guys are going to let go of me because they want to live.
Guadalajara, Mexico, November 16th, 2001. Michael McGuffey has been on the run for nearly a decade after killing his ex-wife. Now, Mexican immigration officers are trying to arrest him for overstaying his visa. But McGuffey is not going down without a fight.
I catch my feet on that curb, and so I start shoving us all out in front of that bus.
The Mexican immigration officials fail to present identification. McGuffey fears he's being kidnapped. McGuffey is well aware of the gruesome consequences of a kidnapping. He realizes there's only one way out.
If I can get us in front of these buses, these guys are going to let go of me because they want to live. And I can go to the other side of the highway because I can take the risk of getting hit by the bus. Maybe I'll die, but it's better than being kidnapped.
At the last second, the men overpower McGuffey and throw him to the curb.
And they finally convinced me that they're immigration officers. And so I let them put on the handcuffs.
Arriba! Arriba!
So on the way to the airport, I said, man, come on, it's just a visa. Here, let me just pay you for the visa. And they said, well, how much money do you have?
$1,000.
I've got a grand I'm picking up at there, and I'll let you have that.
No. The Mexican authorities don't accept the bribe. They take him to the airport. They hand him off to an American federal agent.
We were somewhat creative in how we returned Michael E. McGuffey back to the United States. He had overstayed his time in Mexico, and so he was essentially deported to the United States from Mexico.
I was not arrested for murder. I was arrested because I'd overstayed my visitor's visa in Mexico.
They board a flight for the United States. After 8 years and 2 months, Michael McGuffey is back where it all started. He now comes face to face with the man who has tracked him all these years.
When I saw Mark Shipman, I knew I was caught, and I knew it was over.
And he said to me, so you're the one? I said, yes, I'm the one. And he said, well, you can't blame a guy for trying.
I did feel like I got away from the law, and I got overconfident, and because I did feel like I got away from the law, that's the reason why I got caught.
The capture of Michael McGuffey is one of those days in the FBI that you're able to point to and say, specifically on this day, I did something to help my community be a better place.
McGuffey is captured because of the determination of law enforcement. The Mount Vernon Police Department, the FBI, and the Mexican immigration officers.
You know, this is a case where a police department just wouldn't let a case die. And maybe they didn't make all the right decisions all the time, but they just never let it go.
McGuffey enters a plea of guilty for the murder of Michelle McGuffey.
So on the eve of this big murder trial, Mike McGuffey signs a guilty plea. And it starts off sounding very contrite and sad and apologetic for what happened, remorseful. And then suddenly, you know, towards the end, there's this part about, but Shelley may have provoked what happened to her. And the judge who sentenced him was just flabbergasted by it.
Michael McGuffey is sentenced to 26 years in prison. He is ordered to have no contact with his daughter or the victim's family. Michael Lee McGuffey is now a prisoner at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. Behind bars, McGuffey reflects on his life on the lam.
Too hard of a life on the run. It's, I tell you what, that is one thing about being on the run. It's like you're burning the candle at both ends. You know, I just feel old and tired. Being in prison, it's basically like being on a holding pattern for death. It's just a big nothingness.
A jealous boyfriend with a history of violence kills in cold blood and gets away with it.
There's no doubt in my mind Michael Alfonso is a psychopath.
7 years later, he kills again.
Hey!
unloading his pistol in front of dozens of witnesses.
It's just that I just snapped a few times in my life.
A fugitive on the run.
In this case, it wasn't a whodunit. It was a where is he?
He disappears into the jungles of Central America, leading police on an international manhunt. Criminals sometimes try to escape from justice. This is the story of how one man almost got away with it. It's a warm night in the Chicago suburb of Wheaton, Illinois. 23-year-old Souvenir Yang is about to end her short-lived affair with Michael Alfonso. By the summer of 1992, Yang is separated from her husband and living alone with their young son.
It's not gonna change.
Yang wants to get back together with her husband. Despite being pregnant with Alfonso's child, she decides to break up with him.
You're the one being dumb about it. You understand me?
No, I've made my decision.
I got angry with her because she said that she wanted to break up with me and go back to her husband.
I just don't want to do.
On the night of August 31st, Yang agrees to see Alfonso one last time.
Look, get your clothes on. I'm coming over right now.
Okay, fine.
They meet outside her apartment. He convinces her to go for a drive. Yang explains how she wants to work things out with her husband. She plans to abort Alfonso's child. Alfonso implores Yang to stay with him and to keep the child. She's already decided, though, it's over between them.
She goes, this is going to be the last time I talk to you, and this and that. And the thing is, I was driving the car, and she was in the passenger seat. What happened was, I took out the gun and stuff. And I told her, no, I don't think you're going to leave me. I told her, you're not going to leave me.
We are over. We are over.
You're going to listen to me now. That's what you're going to listen.
Michael Alfonso won't take no for an answer. Yang tries to calm him down. As far as Alfonso is concerned, if he can't have her, no one can.
Relax, what happened to the top girl now, huh? Ready to say goodbye.
He murders her in cold blood and drives off. On the morning of September 1st, 1992, Yang's mother reports her daughter missing. Detective David Sedan is in charge of finding the missing woman. He's a 16-year veteran of the Wheaton Police Department. Police begin the investigation. They conduct dozens of interviews and quickly learn that Yang was dating Michael Alfonso at the time of her disappearance. They also learn that Michael Alfonso was the last person to see Yang alive.
My partner and I went out to talk to him, and one of the things he told us, and I'll never forget this, and I said, Michael, how did you know Sue Yang? And he said, she was my girlfriend. Hence the word, she was my girlfriend.
Alfonso is the prime suspect in Yang's murder, but there's little evidence to prove his guilt.
I knew they weren't going to catch me, you know what I'm saying? I mean, despite them coming to my house all the time and wanting to search my house and search my car and stuff, but I was like, man, you don't have anything on me, you know what I mean? And they didn't.
On November 18th, 1992, 2 months after Yang's disappearance, police find her car in a vacant lot at the edge of town. It's been consumed in a fire. A few weeks later, hikers discover Yang's skeletal remains in the woods of a state park 38 miles from her home. Her skull indicates a single gunshot wound to the head.
There's very little physical evidence they can get from that. There had been a 2-month delay between the time she disappeared and the time they found her.
The police are doing all they can to prove that Michael Alfonso murdered Souvenir Yang. Despite their efforts, Alfonso is still free.
It was very frustrating for the detectives. I knew them well, and I know it was always something that they continued to work. It was never a cold case. It was always an active investigation. They weren't forgetting about Souvenir Yang. not by a long shot.
He was in love with her. There's no doubt about that. And when she broke it off, and especially threatened to abort the baby, he just became infuriated. And he felt that killing her would satisfy his rage.
Alfonso believes that he's gotten away with murder. For him, this has just been another chapter in a long line of violent crimes against women. By the time of Yang's murder, Detective Zidane already knows Alfonso all too well. 3 years earlier, Zidane arrested Alfonso for the gang rape of a 17-year-old girl.
We all knew that the propensity of this man to commit more violence against women was very high, and we got to get this guy off the street.
What's up? What are you doing here? What is that?
In 1994, Alfonso strikes again. He gets in a fight with his new girlfriend and brutally stabs her. She survives, and Alfonso goes to prison for 4 years. In 1998, he is released for a few short months before being arrested again. This time, it's for criminal sexual abuse. He's displaying a dangerous pattern of violence with no end in sight.
He had left a lot of violence in his wake. In several counties, we found women who had survived his sexual violence.
There's no doubt in my mind Michael Alfonso is a psychopath. There's so much turmoil in that man's life, and he only has the ability to care about himself.
It's been 9 years since the murder of Souvenir Yang. And by the summer of 2001, Alfonso continues to live in his hometown of Wheaton, Illinois. He's working nights at a warehouse where he becomes involved with another married woman. Her name is Genoveva Velasquez.
Yeah, she was a really great person. She was like a mom to me because she was my older sister and I was the younger one. She always wanted to give us the best.
She worked 2 jobs to make ends meet, and she was in a period of transition.
Heno, as her friends call her, has no idea of Alfonso's criminal past or of his propensity for violence.
You sometimes talk to people you don't know. You know, you don't know their background. Yes, that's, the danger we all face when we go out there.
Heno was a good woman. She was very family and loyal. And although she was having some strange issues with her husband, they were working out those issues.
By June 5th, 2001, Genoveva and Alfonso have been dating for a few months. She tells him that it's over between them. She wants to reconcile with her husband. Facing rejection once again, Alfonso becomes enraged.
Let go! Let go! Let go!
He threatens both Genoveva and her family.
You? No! Let go of me!
Family and your 2 kids, you got that?
Genoveva is terrified and calls the police.
She did not want Michael Alfonso to be contacted, and that was over the objection of the police department.
Who needs to talk to? He's ready to kill my children!
But she was afraid that if we had contacted him, that it would enrage him further, and she was truly afraid. So there was an extra patrol in her house.
Alfonso stays up all night, drinking, doing drugs, and obsessing over the breakup.
I was drinking a lot of beer, and then it was in the morning time, and I knew she had to go to work at 8 o'clock. Then I said, I'm going to do this.
The next morning, Genoveva Velasquez drops her 9-year-old daughter off at school and heads to work. When she arrives, Alfonso is waiting for her. Still drunk, high on drugs, and full of rage. Alfonso stalks Heno as she arrives. Armed with a .357 Magnum, a brutally powerful weapon, He ignores the dozens of witnesses in the drive-through line.
Hey!
He approaches Genoveva and aims to kill. Michael Alfonso has gotten away with the 1992 murder of his former girlfriend. Police suspect him, but he's never charged. 9 years later, a similar situation is unfolding as he stalks his current girlfriend.
And I pulled out the gun. And I just unloaded the whole chamber.
Hey!
On the morning of June 6, 2001, Michael Alfonso brutally murders Genoveva Velasquez, then flees the scene as dozens of witnesses watch in horror.
One of the witnesses at the McDonald's was waiting through the drive-thru, and she was sitting in her car, and she saw Michael Alfonso run by her car just after she heard the gunshots, and she said that this guy had a smirk on his face. He was actually smirking.
Genoveva's husband works at the restaurant as well, and he's on break as the shots ring out.
When he heard the shots, he actually ran to where he heard the gunshots, and he saw his wife lying on the ground, and he was absolutely overcome with grief. They were estranged, but they still had a child together, they still worked with each other, and they still lived with each other. There was no doubt it was very hard on him.
It happened at 8:30 in the morning. People are going through the drive-thru to get their morning coffee on their way to work. Nobody expected this to happen.
Police arrive minutes after the murder, with reporters following close behind.
Early on, we didn't know what we had. We just knew there was a shooting at the McDonald's. So we weren't sure, was it a random robbery gone bad, or was it a gun-toting crazy person who just walked into a random McDonald's and opened fire?
There's a killer on the loose, and the public is fearful. Police work to control the situation.
It was absolute pandemonium, yellow police tape, squad cars, ambulances. It was just absolute chaos.
Officers informed detectives at Dan of Alfonso's threats to Genoveva the night before.
I said, Michael Alfonso, what does he have to do with this? And I was advised that they were dating. I went, oh no. We gotta go find Michael Alfonso. And he was nowhere to be found.
Despite Genoveva's fears and the warning she gave police, this tragedy wasn't avoided.
That was a hard one to swallow. When a woman comes to the police and says, I'm afraid this guy threatened to kill me and I want protection. And 8 hours later, she's dead. That was just the hardest thing in the world to swallow. So did that one slip through the cracks? It sure did.
Witnesses positively identify Michael Alfonso as the man who shot Genoveva Velasquez. The police step up their hunt for him, now that they are certain he's the killer.
We went to his employment, we got work records, search warrant on his home, search warrant for his car if we could find it. And suddenly we started learning information.
Investigators searched the crime scene and soon hit the jackpot, finding a revolver stashed in a sewer drain nearby.
And that gun ballistically matched to the bullets that killed Heno. So it was obvious that he ran from the McDonald's. He had parked his black Pontiac in an apartment parking lot, tossed the gun in a sewer, and took off.
For investigators, the evidence is lining up, and the events of that fateful morning are becoming clear.
In the beginning of this case, the investigation was primarily focused on developing evidence to determine the identity of the shooter, and that evidence pointed at Michael Alfonso.
Authorities issue an arrest warrant for Michael Alfonso, charging him with the first-degree murder of Genoveva Velasquez.
When we got the arrest warrant for Michael Alfonso, the face of the investigation changed from identify the killer to now find the fugitive.
Alfonso knows the police are hunting him. He's fluent in Spanish. His plan is to escape to Mexico. He's been in and out of prison most of his life. He's determined not to go back.
I've been to the joint 3 times, and you learn each time from your mistakes, you know what I mean? You learn the right way and the wrong way to do things.
His first step is to confuse the police. He drives his car to the Indianapolis airport and leaves it there. Then, he spends the last of his cash on a bus ticket to Miami. 2 days after the murder, Alfonso arrives in Miami. He gets nervous and can't stay there long.
I was always in a paranoid state, pretty much. You can't imagine the fear, you know? When you're out in the street, everybody's like suspect, you know what I mean? This could be a undercover, you know what I mean? If some person follows you too long, you're thinking that this is a police, you know what I'm saying?
Alfonso hitchhikes west to the border town of El Paso, Texas. From there, he can cross into Mexico and start a new life.
I took a cab across the border, and they didn't ask me for any identification or anything, you know what I mean? And when I got to the other side, I took a bus to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
In late June 2001, Michael Alfonso arrives in Puerto Vallarta. He's only been on the run for about a month, but already he's beginning to regret his actions.
I wish I would have never killed anybody, to be honest with you, but more so too, I wish I would have thought more. I wish I would have learned a lesson from the first one and not did the second one, you know what I mean?
He roams around this popular tourist destination, out of money and desperately looking for work.
I was walking along the beach, going to different businesses, asking, do you have work? You know, do you have work for me? I need work.
His desperate search pays off, and Alfonso finds work as a bartender, serving unsuspecting tourists. He's settling into a new life, far from home. Back in Wheaton, Illinois, police continue their investigation. They know that Alfonso could be anywhere and fear that he'll strike again.
I think he can't satisfy his rage. Here's your psychopathic behavior. Did he know what he was doing was wrong? Without a doubt. That's why he fled. He knew he'd be taken into custody. But he could not help it.
The Wheaton Police Department enlists all hands in the manhunt, and additional support is requested from state and national law enforcement.
We called in the DuPage County Major Crimes Task Force, Illinois State Police, the FBI, and we just poured a ton of detectives from the area into this case.
With the help of the FBI's vast resources, investigators interviewed dozens of people associated with Michael Alfonso, including his mother and sister. 2,000 miles away, Alfonso is beginning to miss his family, and he's in need of cash. He knows that calling home is risky, but on June 26, 2001, he takes the chance and calls anyway.
Hey, sis.
I asked her to wire me money, but she said no because she could get in trouble, you know, and I understood. I didn't want to get my sister in trouble or anything.
You know what, I don't think I can. I think the cops are watching.
In fact, just by calling his sister, Alfonso has put her at risk of being an accomplice. She knows this and immediately contacts police with important news.
And she told us that she received a collect phone call from her brother. And Michael told her that he was in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. We developed a team of Mexican police officers, Mexican FBI, and the United States FBI, and they were on Puerto Vallarta in the area where he was calling from.
The FBI traces Alfonso's call. It leads them to the restaurant he's working at, the FBI and Mexican authorities arrive in Puerto Vallarta. They stake out his restaurant. And surround it. Investigators have finally caught up with Michael Alfonso.
We are over. You gonna listen to me now?
By the summer of 2001, it's been 9 years since Michael Alfonso murdered his girlfriend, Souvenir Yang. It's been a month since he murdered Genoveva Velasquez. FBI agents and Mexican authorities track him down in Puerto Vallarta. FBI agents coordinate with Mexican police and charge in.
I think he saw something, and he took off running, because he's skilled at that.
They scour the bar. After a thorough search, they realize that Alfonso is nowhere to be found.
They went to make an arrest. He was not there, and they believe that they had just missed him.
Authorities are frustrated at being moments too late.
He knows how to evade capture. I think he smells when there's a problem.
He's on the loose. He's dangerous, and he's determined not to get caught. After narrowly escaping the FBI in Puerto Vallarta, Alfonso flees deeper into Mexico, taking a bus 250 miles east to Guadalajara. He arrives broke and disoriented.
I was walking around just deciding where I was going to go and stuff, because I'd never been there before or anything like that.
Alfonso is in Mexico illegally and is traveling without a passport or ID. He looks every bit the wayward transient when he's stopped by Mexican immigration officers.
You have my identification on you?
No.
Where you from? Cuba.
And then all of a sudden the immigration came, and the immigration asked me for identification.
Having just escaped the FBI, he now faces a new threat.
I told them that I don't have any identification. They asked where I was from, so I told them, yeah, I was Cubano, and I came here from Cuba, you know what I mean? And they told me, okay, well, you come with us.
Mexican authorities arrest Alfonso and transfer him to the immigration center. Officials there continue to press him about his identity. He only gives them an alias, Adolfo Ruiz.
They kept asking me, is there any way that we can find out who you are? And, I wasn't going to tell them.
Most of the detainees Alfonso meets are from Central and South America. Alfonso isn't the only American fugitive being held by Mexican immigration.
Every single American that was in there was a fugitive. There were guys down there in the immigration camp from the United States who were on America's Most Wanted, who I recognized and stuff, but who never got caught.
Michael Alfonso is finally locked up. But Mexican authorities have no idea that he's wanted for murder back in the United States. Every day he's held there brings a greater chance of his true identity being discovered. Or worse.
And they told us, if you try to escape, we're going to shoot you.
His true identity is never revealed. And after 9 long months, he is finally released.
He felt that he was going to be taken back to the United States at any time. And when they let him go, he was elated. He couldn't believe it.
I was free, I kind of thought that, that they would be on my trail and stuff.
Alfonso decides that Mexico is no longer safe for him. He must leave or risk being caught again.
As soon as they released me, I went to Guatemala. I didn't just stay in Mexico. I went to Guatemala.
Alfonso befriends one of the other released detainees, Orlando Brava. Together, they head south.
We had no money or anything. We were just going. We went to the bus. We got it. We begged for enough to get to the next stop. Each stop we would get off and beg more money and to get to the next stop until we finally got to the border.
Alfonso and Orlando come to the border between Mexico and Guatemala. They are traveling without passports and can't just walk through legally. Somehow, they must figure out a way to get across by other means.
And we paid 5 pesos to cross the river. And the river is the one that the same immigrants cross from Guatemala into Mexico. But we were going the reverse way. We were going into Guatemala and stuff, which was kind of worse off.
Migrants heading north question why the two would be heading into Guatemala, where it's more dangerous. Undaunted, they continue on. By the time they finally reach Guatemala City, Orlando is starting to act strangely.
Upon getting off the bus in Guatemala City, my friend Orlando, he snapped. He just started snapping and stuff.
The fear, paranoia, and stress of living on the run are too much for Orlando.
So I just told him, you know what, it's better if you go your way and I go my way because you're kind of unstable. You're gonna draw attention to me, and the police are gonna come. You know what I mean? And they're gonna lock us up in this country for not having papers. You know what I mean? And so he went his own way, and then I went my own way.
Alfonso is on his own again as he travels 400 miles to Livingston, Guatemala. He's hoping to lay low in this small coastal town.
I got there, and I had no place to stay, so I was walking along the beach asking for food. I had absolutely nothing to eat and stuff.
He's hungry and getting desperate. The town is not what he had expected.
It was kind of dangerous down there because tourists were getting killed and stuff. There was a lot of violence in that town.
Alfonso lands a job working security at a hotel. With a little money in his pocket, he starts doing drugs.
Every morning that I would get paid, I would go buy weed. You know what I mean? And I was smoking every single day to the point where I wasn't even functioning right, you know what I mean? Where I wouldn't even eat.
It doesn't take long before Alfonso's boss catches him doing drugs on the job. He fires Alfonso on the spot.
I was so hot-headed because he told me, you're out of here. You're kicked out of here. At that point, I was this close to going in and stabbing him. I was this close to going in to killing him.
Alfonso conceives of a plan to kill his boss and take the money he knows is kept in the office.
Because if I get locked up in Guatemala, these jails are horrific, and I'll be stuck down here for years. You know what I mean?
This time, reason prevails over rage. After spending a month in Guatemala, he's had enough and continues on. He travels through the thick jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula until he reaches the Belize border.
So I crossed over and I was running into Belize. And the immigration were right there. And he goes, hey, where'd you just come from? You just came out of the woods, didn't you?
What are you doing out there?
Just
Why are you in the bushes?
just looking around.
Just looking around.
Alfonso has been locked up by immigration once before. It looks like he's getting caught again. It's been a year since Michael Alfonso murdered Genoveva Velasquez. He's been living as a fugitive in the jungles of Central America. In the winter of 2002, he crosses into Belize and emerges from the jungle. An immigration agent stops him to investigate.
What are you doing out there?
Just vacation.
Vacationing in the bushes?
I'm staying in Belize.
Belize?
Yeah.
¿Cómo se llama?
I'm American. I'm American.
Americano?
Yeah.
I said, no, I said, I'm American. I said, I lost my passport and I lost all my identification. Someone robbed me and stuff. He goes, are you sure you're not sneaking over here? I said, no, I'm American. I wouldn't be able to speak English. You know what I mean?
The moment it takes for the immigration officer to decide seems like a lifetime to Alfonso.
And he was like, oh, okay, I'm going to give you a break now. You know, I'm not going to take you in. So he didn't take me in, you know what I mean?
Alfonso is free to go. As he runs deeper into Central America, he gets further from investigators back in Wheaton, Illinois. And they're beginning to lose track of him.
Michael Alfonso was a danger to society. He proved it, time and time again. Through his sexual assaults of women, stabbing women, raping them, killing them. He's a serial killer, and there was no doubt in my mind he would kill again.
With this in mind, investigators double their efforts.
There was a team effort on the part of local, state, and federal law enforcement officials. It even came to the point where we were getting the Velasquez family helping us.
Working with their relatives in Mexico, the Velasquez family hopes that by posting flyers and flooding the media, someone will recognize Alfonso.
I remember going to Mexico to visit my uncle, and, we were talking about everything, things that we can do, people that he can talk to, so the word can get around.
Their efforts pay off as dozens of tips are reported. The FBI follows up and closes in.
And each time we would get an agent of the FBI in Mexico to go after one of these tips, and we got on it right away, but we were always about 6 months behind him.
As investigators continue their search, Alfonso arrives in another popular tourist destination.
I landed in Cancun, and the thing is, they warn you about when you go to Cancun that there's a lot of immigration and stuff in Cancun and stuff, so you gotta be careful and stuff.
Alfonso gets a job as a bouncer at a strip club. They give him a place to stay and a much-needed paycheck. There's one big problem. The club is swarming with Americans.
A lot of Americans would come in the strip club, and then there's this one guy who came in there who recognized me from America's Most Wanted. And he told me, I seen you on America's Most Wanted. He told me that. I said, no, you must be mistaken. You haven't seen me. He goes, what's your name? I gave him a fake name and stuff.
Alfonso fears being recognized. It only takes one phone call, and his days of freedom are over.
He's like, no, I know, I saw you. As soon as he said that, that was my last night there, I left.
Alfonso doesn't take any chances. He leaves Cancun and continues north along the coast. By the winter of 2002, Michael Alfonso has been on the run for over a year. He's traveled thousands of miles throughout Mexico and Central America. He's worn out, and he's struggling to survive.
I was just like basically begging, you know what I'm saying? Begging, and because my ultimate destination was to get to Veracruz, Mexico, you know what I mean? And so I was like thinking, I didn't know if I was gonna make it or not.
He was living in squalor. He had no money, He had no resources. He had no one to turn back onto. He had to scratch out a way to survive.
When Alfonso finally arrives in Veracruz, he's tired, hungry, and broke.
I told myself, either I make it here or I don't, you know what I mean? I said, there's not going to be any packing up and going anyplace else or nothing. This is where I'm going to stay.
Veracruz is a historic port city, and Alfonso hopes to blend in with its large population of African descendants. Starting in a new town has become routine for Alfonso, and it doesn't take long for Alfonso to find a job, a place to stay, and a girlfriend.
I met a girlfriend down there. She was a nurse. Her name was Edith. And what happened with her is we started to date and stuff and go out and stuff.
Edith has no idea about Alfonso's violent past. No idea that he's currently wanted for murder. Alfonso settles into his new life. He begins to feel that he might have gotten away with murder for the second time.
By this time, I started to feel real comfortable. You know what I mean? I didn't feel like someone was looking for me. So I really let my guard down a lot. And I mean, I started going out to drink every Friday night, every Saturday night with them, going to the strip club.
As Alfonso begins to let his guard down, the FBI is turning up the heat. January 2003, they place Michael Alfonso on the list of 10 most wanted fugitives. He's listed at 5'10", 180 pounds, with Blanca tattooed on his back.
I believe Michael Alfonso would be capable of killing again, easily. And that's one of the reasons why he was put on the top 10 of his propensity for murder.
The listing allows investigators to put greater resources into the case. It also creates more media attention and leads to appearances on 3 popular television crime shows.
We're tracking him, we're following him. And although it's frustrating that we're always about 6 months behind him, we know where he's at, we know where he's going. So we felt that if we just keep doing what we're doing, we're going to hit it.
In this case, it wasn't a whodunit. It was a where is he? And I knew it was just a matter of time before his luck would run out.
On June 14th, 2004, a man walks into the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City and tells the FBI that he's seen Alfonso's case profiled on television. He tells them that he knows Michael Alfonso. He knows where he works, and he knows where he lives.
You're not going to believe this. I got a great lead on Alfonso. Yeah.
FBI agents and Mexican authorities act quickly and descend on Veracruz the next day. They patrol Alfonso's neighborhood and spot him as he enters a barber shop. After 3 years of eluding justice, law enforcement finally have Alfonso in their grasp. They coordinate their positions and move in. Michael Alfonso has eluded justice for over 12 years. When on June 14th, 2004, the FBI receives a tip on his whereabouts and moves in. The FBI is determined not to let him slip away. Despite the activity going on outside, everything appears normal inside the barber shop.
He did like half of my hair, and I see these guys come in.
Agents enter the barber shop, knowing that Alfonso will do anything to avoid capture.
What? No. ¿Dónde eres? Where are you from? Cuba. I'm thinking they got me. They got me, you know what I mean? ¿De dónde eres? Where are you from? They asking me why, they asking me where I'm from. ¿Tú eres americano, güey? Cuba. I'm from Cuba. You're American. I said, I'm from Cuba. And he said, no, tú eres americano, güey. He said, you're American, you know what I mean?
They check for a distinguishing tattoo on Alfonso's back to confirm his identity.
And then when he pulled back my shirt and looked at my tattoo, I knew it was them then. I knew it was them. I was like, yeah, these got me.
The FBI finally have their man.
Vámonos! Let's go.
And there's no way they're letting him escape this time.
And then that's when they cuffed me up, and from that day on, I've never seen freedom.
Alfonso's life as a violent criminal and fugitive comes to an end. Mexican authorities deport Michael Alfonso back to the United States. On July 27, 2005, Detective David Zidane escorts Alfonso back to the police department in Wheaton, Illinois. The police have spent years collecting evidence and building a case against Alfonso.
Now comes the really tough part. And it certainly wasn't over, because now you have to prosecute him.
Everyone expects a lengthy court battle, but on July 11, 2007, Michael Alfonso avoids a possible death sentence by pleading guilty to all charges.
When he was convicted, I'm in the jury box watching this, and I don't think anybody saw. I just went, finally, convicted of 3 counts of murder, for the death of Heno, for the death of Su Yang, and the death of Su Yang's baby.
Family members of the victims give statements during the hearing.
I knew from the beginning that Michael Alfonso had killed my daughter. He is an evil person. Alfonso didn't just take my mom. He took my happiness away.
There really wasn't a dry eye in the room, including, the grizzled police detectives and prosecutors who had seen everything.
As part of the plea deal, Alfonso agrees to record a full confession to police.
If she didn't want to be with me, then she wasn't going to be with anybody.
What were you thinking?
I was just thinking I'm going to get her. I shot it till the gun quit.
It's a chilling account of violence by a man without empathy.
There is a cautionary tale in there, because I'm sure there's many people out there like Michael Alfonso, and they don't look like the big bad wolf, but you never know what they're capable of.
I mean, besides the ones that I killed, there are other ones who I've done horrific things to, all because I'm jealous and controlling, you know what I'm saying? I'm not heartless, you know what I mean? I have a heart, you know what I mean? It's just that I just snapped a few times in my life.
Hey! Murdering women, stabbing them, shooting them, controlling them. That's not a decent guy. He's a brother, he's a son, and he's a killer. And there's no question about that.
Michael Alfonso is now locked up in the Menard Correctional Facility in southern Illinois. He'll spend the rest of his life there with no possibility of parole.